The first time I heard it, I thought I was dreaming. A soft whisper, like dry leaves skittering across pavement, seeping through the wall right behind my headboard. I was half asleep, tangled in my sheets, and the sound was so faint I almost dismissed it. But then it came again, a little clearer this time. A single word, "Hello." My heart hammered against my ribs. I sat bolt upright, straining my ears in the suffocating silence of my apartment. There was nothing. Just the familiar hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen and the distant wail of a siren. I must have imagined it. Stress, I told myself. Too many late nights at the office. I lay back down, pulling the covers up to my chin, but sleep was a distant shore I couldn't reach. The next night, it happened again. Hello. This time, I was ready. I didn't move, didn't even breathe. I just listened. After a long pause, I whispered back, my voice trembling. "Who's there?" The silence stretched on, and I was about to give up, to write it off as my sanity fraying at the edges. But then the voice returned. Just listening, and that's how it started. Night after night, we would talk. Or rather, I would talk, and it would listen. I told it about my dead-end job, my overbearing boss, my failed attempts at dating. I confessed my deepest fears and my most embarrassing secrets. It was strangely liberating. I was pouring my soul out to a disembodied voice from behind a plaster wall, a complete and utter unknown. The voice was my perfect confidant. It never judged, never interrupted, never offered unsolicited advice. It just listened, occasionally punctuating my monologues with a soft "I see" or "go on." It became my ritual, the part of my day I looked forward to the most. My life, which had felt so gray and monotonous, suddenly had this sliver of mystery, a secret that was mine alone. I'd lie in bed, facing the wall, and just talk. I told it about the stray cat I'd started feeding, the one I named Patches. I described the way the sunset looked from my office window on the 14th floor. I even read it a chapter from my favorite book one night. In return, I got nothing. Nothing personal, anyway. I tried to ask questions, of course. My curiosity was annoying hunger. "What's your name?" I'd ask. The reply would be a soft, evasive, "Does it matter?" I'd try again. "Where are you? Are you in the next apartment?" And the voice would simply say, "I'm here." It was maddening. It felt like I was sharing my entire world while my companion remained a complete enigma, a blank slate shrouded in drywall and mystery. Who was this person? Were they lonely like me? Were they trapped? The possibilities spun wildly in my head. Maybe it was an elderly neighbor, too frail to leave their bed. Or perhaps someone being held against their will, using this as their only form of contact with the outside world. The thought sent a chill down my spine. The more I talked, the more obsessed I became with finding out the truth. The comfort of our nightly conversations started to curdle into a desperate need for answers. I started doing some amateur detective work. I checked the building directory. The apartment next to mine, 12B, was listed as vacant. It had been for months. I listened at their door, pressing my ear against the cold metal, but heard nothing. I asked the superintendent, a gruff man named George, if anyone had moved in. He just grunted and said no, the unit was still being prepped for rental. This only deepened the mystery. If the apartment was empty, then where was the voice coming from? Was it from the apartment below? Above? The acoustics in old buildings can be strange, but the sound was always so close, so intimately near, as if someone were lying on the other side of my headboard. My obsession grew. I spent my days at work distracted, replaying our conversations, searching for clues I might have missed. I started to neglect my responsibilities. My boss called me into his office, concerned about my performance. I barely heard him. All I could think about was getting home, getting into bed, and talking to my invisible friend. The voice, however, seemed to sense my growing agitation. It became more reticent. My questions were met with longer and longer silences. My desperation was pushing it away. One night, I pleaded with it. Please, just tell me something. Anything. I feel like I'm going crazy. The silence that followed was the longest yet. I thought it was gone for good. My heart sank. I had ruined the one strange good thing in my life. I was about to turn over and admit defeat when the voice came back, softer than ever, almost a sigh. You're not crazy. That was it. That was all it gave me, but it was enough. It was a lifeline. My resolve hardened. I wasn't crazy, and I was going to prove it. I was going to find the source of that voice. The next day, I called in sick to work. My plan was simple, if a little unhinged. I was going to go into the vacant apartment. George, the superintendent, was lazy and predictable. He kept a spare set of keys in a small lockbox near the boiler room. I'd seen him use it 100 times. Getting the key was easier than I thought. My hand shook as I stood in front of the door to 12B. This was it. I was finally going to get some answers. I slipped the key into the lock, turned it, and pushed the door open. The air that hit me was stale and dusty. The apartment was completely empty, just as George had said. Bare floors, white walls, hollow echoes. I walked through the small space, my footsteps loud in the silence. I went into the bedroom and stood before the wall that connected to mine. It was blank, smooth, perfect. I pressed my ear against it, but there was nothing. Disappointment washed over me. I felt foolish. I was about to leave when I noticed something near the baseboard. A small, dark hole, no bigger than a quarter. It looked like an old cable outlet that had been removed. Driven by an impulse I couldn't explain, I got down on my hands and knees and peered inside. It was dark, but I could just make out the space between the walls. The guts of the building, pipes, wires, insulation. And then I heard it, not the voice, something else. A faint, dry, skittering sound, like a mouse maybe, or a cockroach. But it was rhythmic, persistent. It was the sound of something moving. Something bigger than an insect. I held my breath and listened. The scurrying sound grew louder, closer. It was coming from right inside the wall, just inches from my face. A wave of cold dread washed over me, so intense it made me nauseous. This whole time, I hadn't been talking to a person in the next apartment. I had been talking to something asterisk inside asterisk the walls. The skittering stopped. A profound silence fell, heavy and watchful. And then, from the darkness of the hole, a whisper slithered out, closer and clearer than it had ever been before. I knew you'd come. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more content like this. Let me know in the comments what you think was in the wall.